Good afternoon, I'm Leila Masimova and you're watching A News. Now the major stories making headlines today. Donald Trump confirms that the US will decrease tariffs on China's goods. The International Monetary Fund cuts growth forecasts for most countries in the wake of century-high US tariffs. Turkey and Pakistan announced enhancing joint efforts in energy infrastructure and mineral development. US President Donald Trump is softening his stance on China, signaling a possible breakthrough in long-standing trade tensions. Trump says that US tariffs on China's goods will be nowhere near the 145% figure and will be substantially lower. The decision comes after Beijing warned other nations against making trade deals with America, which might impact China. Now Trump says he's making good progress with the country.
145% is very high, and it won't be that high. It's not going to be that high. It got up to there. We were talking about fentanyl, where, various elements built it up to 145. No, it won't be anywhere near that high.
And what level do you think it'll come down to if you haven't?
It'll come down substantially, but it won't be zero. It used to be zero. We were just destroyed. China was taking us for a ride, and just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. We're going to be very good to China, have a great relationship with President Xi, but they would make billions and billions and billions of dollars a year, and they would build their military out of the United States and what they made, so that won't happen. But they're going to do very well.
Intel is preparing to lay off more than 20% of its global workforce this week in a major push to cut costs and streamline operations. The job cuts are part of a broader effort to refocus on engineering and innovation. Intel has not issued a public comment, but this marks the first major move by new CEO Bulletin, who took over last month. Tan is also reassessing Intel's chip production and artificial intelligence strategy. The company last trimmed its workforce in August 2024, cutting about 15,000 jobs as part of a $10 billion cost-saving plan. At the end of last year, Intel reported nearly 109,000 employees. Elon Musk says he's stepping back from his controversial role in the Trump administration to refocus on the electric car company. The move comes after Tesla reported a steep plunge in sales and profits, its worst performance in nearly 3 years.
Tesla chief executive Elon Musk announced that starting next month, he will reduce his time working with the Department of Government Efficiency to 1 or 2 days a week. He said the department's restructuring is nearly finished, allowing him to return to Tesla at a crucial time. This move follows disappointing results for Tesla, with a 9% drop in overall revenue and a 20% decline in automotive income. The company also sold 50,000 fewer vehicles than the year before. Tesla blamed the US-China trade war for its sales drop, noting that tariffs on Chinese imports and China's own levies led to a pause in new Model S and Model X orders in China. Musk distanced himself from the administration's tax hike decisions, stating that it lies entirely with the US president and that he will continue to advocate for lower levies instead of higher ones. Musk's political connections and support for controversial groups in Europe have also led to protests and vandalism at Tesla showrooms, causing a drop in sales in key markets. Musk defended his work at DOGE, saying the demonstrations came from people benefiting from the waste and fraud he was trying to fix, and that his actions were good for both the country and Tesla. Tesla's stock rose by 5.5% after Musk's announcement. Investors were encouraged by better-than-expected profit margins, thanks to lower material costs and more efficient production of the Cybertruck. The company also reaffirmed its plans to launch more affordable models in 2025 and introduced a lower-priced version of the Cybertruck. However, analysts expect the company's vehicle deliveries to continue to decline in this year. Musk says he will reassess the business's growth forecast in 3 months as global trade and political issues continue to create uncertainty.
The International Monetary Fund has cut its economic growth forecast for 2025, saying an increase in tariffs and uncertainty will lead to a significant slowdown. In its latest global outlook, the IMF predicts the global economy will grow by 2.8% this year, down from its previous forecast of 3.3%. The US has been given the biggest downgrade among advanced economies. Growth there is now expected to be 1.8% this year, down from its previous estimate of 2.7%. The IMF said the swift escalation of trade tensions and extremely high levels of uncertainty about future policies would have a significant impact on global activity. A Russian drone struck a bus carrying workers in the Ukrainian city of Marhanets early. Governor of the Dnipropetrovsk region, which includes Marhanets in the center of southern Ukraine, Serhiy Lysak, confirmed that 9 people were killed in the attack, which at least 30 others injured. Head of the Dnipropetrovsk Regional Council said that the Russians attacked a bus with employees of the enterprise who were on their way to work in Marhanets. Still photographs released by Ukrainian State Emergency Service showed rescuers removing bodies from the damaged bus. A potential pause on the war in Ukraine may be on the horizon. Russian President Vladimir Putin has proposed freezing the front lines, prompting US President Donald Trump to consider the terms. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has signaled openness to negotiations if the fighting comes to a halt. As the talks are set to continue in London next week, there are issues that mediators will need to overcome.
Dust may settle along the current front lines in Ukraine. After a failed Easter truce, Vladimir Putin has proposed halting the invasion. According to insiders, the move is part of peace talks between Putin and US President Donald Trump. In a meeting in St. Petersburg, Putin told Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff that Moscow might drop claims to parts of 4 regions still under Kiev's control. The US has since floated a settlement. It includes formal recognition of Russia's hold over Crimea and acceptance of its de facto control in parts of 4 occupied Ukrainian regions. This is Putin's first clear signal in 3 years that he may ease his aims. But European officials warn the offer could be bait to draw Trump into wider concessions and corner Ukraine into a deal it cannot shape. Talks are due in London on Wednesday. Ukrainian officials will meet with European and US counterparts. But key figures are stepping back. Witkoff and Secretary of State Marco Rubio have withdrawn. General Keith Kellogg will lead the US delegation. In Moscow, attention turns to Witkoff's upcoming visit. The work is tense, it takes time and cannot be done in public, said Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov. President Volodymyr Zelensky remains cautious. There are signals, ideas, discussions, he said on Tuesday, but it isn't an official proposition. He left the door open. If a ceasefire takes hold, Ukraine is ready for direct talks with Putin. His message: Ukraine will engage once the guns fall silent. Some in Kiev are listening. Officials told the Financial Times they are open to elements of Trump's plan, but offered no details. Among the proposals, a European peacekeeping mission and a non-NATO force overseeing a demilitarized zone along the 1,000 kilometers front. Both sides would monitor the line. Ukraine would halt offensives. Russia would freeze its advance. But one position is fixed. Ukraine will not recognize the occupation of Crimea, Zelensky said. There is nothing to discuss here. Despite setbacks, Putin stands firm. Full control over 4 regions, Ukrainian neutrality, and reduced NATO presence near Russia. Zaporozhye, never held by Moscow, remains a symbolic goal. Washington, for now, stays silent. The shape of any deal, if it comes, still hangs in the balance.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says that Russia is afraid of direct negotiations. He also accused Moscow of trying to drag out the talks to wear down Washington's patience. Zelensky confirmed his readiness to meet with US President Donald Trump at the Vatican during the Pope's funeral this Saturday. And ahead of talks in London next Wednesday, the Ukrainian president says his team will be ready to discuss what he says as an unconditional ceasefire or partial ceasefire. He made this statement at the press briefing in Kiev.
Maybe Russians are afraid that the Americans will leave the negotiation format, or maybe they are doing it to push them out. With an understanding of the term, we are ready for any format of negotiations with them. Any. We are always ready to meet with partners from the United States. Always. We in America are not afraid to enter into a partnership, but a partnership is a partnership. It would amount to losing a strategic partner. It's not just about aid, it's about intelligence and about ballistics and about life.
Now more on the battlefield circumstances in Ukraine as ceasefire talks. Joining us live from Ukraine is Yaroslav Yurchyshin, Ukrainian MP from the Holos Party. Thank you very much indeed for joining.
Thanks.
Mr. Yurchyshin, so the London meeting is still taking place, but as Secretary of State, German and French foreign ministers won't be present after President Zelensky openly rejected an American proposal that would effectively allow Russia to retain all the Ukrainian territories controlled by it as a part of a ceasefire agreement. Do you expect anything from this downgraded meeting?
Yes, we do expect that all democratic countries will be stay in position that unlawful forcibly occupied territory can be recognized as a part of Russia. So we're talking not only about Crimea, but about for our regions which Russia includes on a constitutional level into itself without any international law position about that, denying any agreements, denying any law system what was established after Second World War. Due to clues, I couldn't say that facts, because openly US anytime announced that they can recognize Crimea as a part of Russian territory. I must remember to our colleagues from US that in 2018, in first term of Trump, US declared that never ever recognized Crimea as a part of Russian territory, so named Crimea Declaration. So the changing position will be only showing to Russia a weakness of Western, a weakness of US. And we do understand that it's never stop war.
And with the US officials having repeatedly suggested that they will walk away from the process if no positive result comes out of it, is Ukraine prepared to continue this war of attrition?
We do believe that it's not happen, because it will be a symbol of weakness of US. But we do believe that our Western country, first of all, European Union, German, and not only European country, we do understand that peace in Black Sea and Mediterranean region very necessary for our partners from Turkey and Azerbaijan. So if situation will be quite unpredictable, we will work with who still will have courage, fight for international law, fight for possibility to any country to save their own territory and not agree with any occupation from any country, and even from country which have nuclear weapon, and try to scare anyone to using this nuclear weapon, denying any international agreement.
Yaroslav Yurchyshin, Ukrainian MP from the Halas party. Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks for your interest in Ukraine.
Indian security forces have launched a massive search operation after at least 26 people were killed by armed gunmen in Kashmir. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi said those behind this act will be brought to justice as he rushed back from his trip to Saudi Arabia hours after the attack. Ishan Garg has the latest from New Delhi.
India's top counter-terrorism body, the National Investigation Agency, has begun its probe into the incident. The attack on tourists in Kashmir's Pahalgam region, often called the Switzerland of India, has not only shocked the nation, but is also leading to an outpouring of grief and anger among citizens. Businesses in Kashmir took out rallies in protests on Wednesday, while political parties across the country are demanding strict action against the perpetrators. According to the eyewitnesses, armed men dressed in camouflage suits opened fire on tourists on Tuesday. Reports say the assailants were carrying military-grade assault rifles. Locals say they descended from the woods, seemingly out of nowhere. They asked some tourists for their identity cards before shooting them at point-blank range. And then they opened indiscriminate fire, hurting many in the area. Most of the victims are believed to be men. This is one of the deadliest attacks in the restive region of Kashmir in the past 25 years. The area has seen decades of armed insurgency against the federal government, but attacks against civilians and of this magnitude have been rare in the recent past. Some analysts believe that the attackers timed it to coincide with US Vice President J.D. Vance's India visit to attract maximum international attention. Opposition parties are vowing to stand in unity with the government in responding to the crisis, but some critics say the tragedy has also shown that the situation in Kashmir is far from normal, and that's despite the government claiming that the region has been rid of militancy since its semi-autonomous status was revoked in 2019. India's Interior Minister Amit Shah is in Kashmir to review the security measures on the ground. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, on the other hand, is also chairing a meeting of the top security committee in the country. All eyes are on India's next move now. Some analysts believe a massive counter-terrorism operation could be on the cards. Meanwhile, security is being heightened in major cities like Delhi and Mumbai as security officials conduct a manhunt in Kashmir. World leaders, including President Donald Trump, Russia's Vladimir Putin, and Germany's Olaf Scholz, have expressed their solidarity with India. Ishan Garg for A News in New Delhi.
In a state visit to China, Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev and China's President Xi Jinping elevated bilateral relations to a comprehensive strategic partnership. The two sides found political alignment, with Azerbaijan endorsing the One China policy and China supporting Azerbaijan's peace efforts and regional connectivity agenda. They agreed to align the Belt and Road Initiative with Azerbaijan's Silk Road Survival Strategy. Several agreements were signed covering investment, infrastructure, technology and media. Educational and cultural exchanges will also expand under the new partnership framework. China also voiced strong support for Azerbaijan's hosting of COP29. Visa-free travel and closer people-to-people ties will further strengthen relations. Armenia is reshaping its foreign policy, distancing itself from old alliances and moving closer to the EU and the US. The shift comes amid strained ties with Russia and growing regional uncertainty.
Armenia's military cooperation with the European Union and the United States has seen a significant boost from early 2025, reflecting a strategic shift in the nation's security and defense approach. A major step towards closer ties with Europe occurred on the 24th of March, when the Armenian Parliament's Standing Committee on European Integration debated a bill officially launching the country's EU accession process. The proposed legislation notably features a new dedicated chapter on defense and security issues. Deputy Foreign Minister Parur Hovhannisyan, recently appointed Armenia's permanent representative to the UN, highlighted the EU's growing role in Armenia's security strategy, stating, "The EU is becoming a crucial partner for Armenia in the security domain. We have initiated political and security dialogues with 2 sessions already held." Hovhannisyan also revealed an imminent defense cooperation program with the EU, utilizing resources from the European Peace Facility. Further strengthening the EU-Armenia security partnership, a European Parliament resolution from March 2024 urged closer defense cooperation and greater support via the European Peace Facility. Reflecting this deeper commitment, Armenia appointed its first military attaché to Brussels in early March this year, marking a significant step toward closer defense collaboration. High-level visits also underline Armenia's strategic pivot. Security Council Secretary Armen Grigorian visited Brussels in April 2025 for discussions on enhanced defense ties, accompanied by senior aides. Earlier, Defense Minister Suren Papikyan visited Germany in February 2025, engaging directly with Belgian Defense Minister Theo Franken, signaling intensified cooperation. Armenia's collaboration with the United States has similarly strengthened. Prominent Armenian political analyst Hovsep Khurshudyan highlighted this development in an interview, stating, "American military units have been deployed from Germany to Armenia for joint training exercises and will remain until August. Even a limited American presence provides a significant security cushion." This view was echoed on social media by Armenian European Party leader Tigran Kazmalyan, who on 22nd March shared a photo with 3 US generals, General Fink, General Makali, and General Dorman, on his Facebook page, highlighting their discussions on strengthening military cooperation. High-level US visits have further cemented these ties. Brigadier General Michael Venerdi from Kansas visited Armenia this January, reinforcing cooperation under the Kansas-Armenia Partnership Program. Additionally, Armenian Chief of General Staff Lieutenant General Edvard Asrian held talks at the Munich Security Conference on 14 February 2025 with General Christopher Cavoli, Commander of US European Command, focusing on deepening bilateral defense collaboration. Armenia is also actively building military partnerships with individual EU member states. Early 2025 witnessed extensive interactions with Greece, including a visit by General Major Artur Yeroyan on 3rd January and follow-up discussions led by Lieutenant General Edvard Asrian on 27th February. These meetings reaffirmed Greece's support for military reform in Armenia. Further European engagement included discussions with Dutch representatives in March 2025, referencing a prior agreement from the February Munich meeting, and defense cooperation agreements with Lithuania signed on the 14th of March. While clearly moving towards stronger Western partnerships, Armenia faces significant geopolitical challenges. particularly given its ongoing economic and energy reliance on Russia. This complexity necessitates a cautious yet determined approach to deepening ties with its new allies, navigating through existing geopolitical realities.
With rising global tensions and shipping risks, China is redrawing its trade map by constructing a new railway to Europe, one that avoids its closely ally Russia. Here is how this strategic shift could reshape trade routes and geopolitics.
China has started building a new railway through Kyrgyzstan and Uzbekistan to connect more directly with Europe without going through Russia. According to The Economist, this multi-billion-dollar project is part of China's effort to protect its exports and trade routes, especially as global tensions rise and security risks grow. The new railway, known as part of the Middle Corridor, is meant to offer a faster and safer path to European markets. It avoids Russian territory, which has become less reliable since Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022. Many European companies have stopped using the old route through Russia due to sanctions, rising insurance costs and safety concerns. Instead, freight is now moving through Kazakhstan to the Caspian Sea, then onward through Azerbaijan and Turkey. China hopes the new railway through Central Asia will make this middle corridor even shorter and more efficient. The new line is 520 kilometres long, and China is lending Kyrgyzstan $2.35 billion to help build it. Although this route is still slower and more expensive than going through Russia, improvements have cut travel times from over 50 days to just under 23. By sea, the journey takes about a month. Rail trade between China and Europe has grown from $8 billion in 2016 to $57 billion in 2023. China sees the Middle Corridor as important, especially after Houthi attacks in the Red Sea raised fears about sea shipping. According to The Economist, China continues to trade heavily with Russia, especially for energy and raw materials. But for exports to Europe, it wants safer and faster alternatives. Both China and the EU want to bypass Russia, although their reasons differ.
We are receiving news that a powerful earthquake has struck near Istanbul, rattling the region and prompting emergency responses. The tremor, which was also felt in neighboring provinces, has raised concerns over structural safety and public well-being. A strong earthquake with a magnitude of 6.2 struck Istanbul on Wednesday at approximately 12:49 p.m. local time. Turkey's Disaster and Emergency Management Authority reported that the epicenter was located in the Marmara Sea off the coast of Silivri, a district of Istanbul. The earthquake, which occurred at a depth of 6.9 kilometers, was felt not only in Istanbul but also across surrounding provinces. Pakistan and Turkey have reaffirmed their commitment to deepen and diversify bilateral cooperation. Prime Minister Mohammad Shahbaz Sharif and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan met in Ankara on Tuesday, where they laid out a vision for stronger ties across energy, technology, security, and more.
Pakistan and Turkey say they will continue to foster, deepen and diversify the bilateral strategic cooperation between what they say are two brotherly countries. Pakistani Prime Minister Mohammad Shahbaz Sharif and President of Turkey Recep Tayyip Erdogan met in Ankara on Tuesday. Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif said his visit to the historic and vibrant Turkish capital enabled both nations to review progress on the targets set during the 7th Pakistan-Turkey High-Level Strategic Cooperation Council meeting held earlier this year in Islamabad. The two leaders pledged to transform those targets into tangible actions, with a focus on enhancing joint efforts in energy, IT infrastructure, and mineral development.
I am absolutely confident by the grace of God that through our joint efforts, we will achieve the mutually agreed target of enhancing our bilateral trade to $5 billion. Defense and security cooperation remains a pillar of Pakistan-Turkey cooperation. I expressed my sincerest gratitude to my dear brother President Erdogan for Turkey's unwavering support on the Kashmir issue and reiterated our support to the people of Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. We agreed to continue our close cooperation in multilateral forums, including UN and OIC.
President Erdogan expressed Turkey's strong interest in investing in joint projects in Pakistan and called for the promotion of mutual investment and the establishment of free economic zones. He also highlighted the importance of regional peace and stability, noting that Ankara and Islamabad act in complete harmony on key issues. He also announced new collaborative steps with Azerbaijan and Pakistan, signaling a trilateral partnership aimed at furthering mutual growth and strategic cohesion.
Israeli media has recently turned the spotlight on Asaf Mishiv, a practicing Jew from Azerbaijan, who is set to proudly represent the country at the Eurovision Song Contest 2025 in Switzerland. For Azerbaijan, this recognition is not only welcomed, it's a reflection of the country's deep-rooted commitment to multiculturalism and religious tolerance.
Asaf Sefail Mishiev, a 32-year-old Jewish musician from Baku, will make history as Azerbaijan's representative at Eurovision 2025 in Switzerland. He is the lead singer of Mamagama, a band that mixes traditional Azerbaijani music with indie rock and pop. Mishiev comes from Azerbaijan's mountain Jewish community, which has roots going back over 2,000 years. He graduated from Baku's Or Avner Jewish School and teaches music to children at a local Jewish music school. In interviews, Mishiev has shared his pride in representing both Azerbaijan and the Jewish people. His participation highlights Azerbaijan's commitment to diversity and inclusion. Jewish citizens have long been part of Azerbaijan's cultural and civic life. Israeli media have warmly welcomed Mishiev's selection, reflecting strong ties between the two nations. As Eurovision approaches, Mishiev and his bandmates, Hassan Haidar and Arif Imanov, will perform their song Run With You. They represent not just Azerbaijan, but the spirit of unity through diversity.
Thanks for spending a moment with A News. Until we meet again.